So, we're going to unpack a really fascinating puzzle. How can a country with such a long, incredible history of invention find it so hard to build world-class tech companies? This is the story of Russia's tech paradox.
Okay, let's just jump right in. Because you have to understand, Russia has some serious claims to being first in some of the most important technologies of the last century. We're talking the first multi-engine passenger planes, transmitting radio waves even before Marconi. They even built the first electronic computer in all of continental Europe. It's an absolutely incredible legacy of raw invention.
And that brings us to the central question, right? If all that inventive genius was there, where are the global tech giants? Why isn't there a Russian version of Samsung or Siemens or Apple? This is the paradox we're going to try and unravel.
To really get this, you have to see that it's not some recent problem. It's a deep-seated historical pattern. Historians have a great name for it, a fitful trajectory. It's this repeating cycle of amazing technological achievement, followed by this frustrating stall, or even a complete collapse.
Now this slide gets right to the heart of it all. Back in the 1830s, you had two guys from poor backgrounds, George Stephenson in England and Miron Cherepanov in Russia. Both brilliant, both building cutting-edge steam locomotives. Technically, they were on par, but their stories couldn't be more different. Stephenson could patent his work, he got investors, he built a company, and boom, he becomes the father of railways. Cherepanov? Well, he was a serf. His inventions literally belonged to his masters, and they couldn't care less, so his work was just forgotten. You see, it was never about the quality of the idea, it was about the society it was born into.
And here's that fitful trajectory in action. It's a crazy story. In the 1820s, the Tula Arms factory was world-class, making guns as good as anyone. But then the Tsar was apparently tricked into believing they'd already perfected interchangeable parts, a huge leap forward. So why invest more, right? Well, while America was busy developing what became known as the American System of Manufacture, Tula just stalled out. And the result? Less than 30 years later, in the Crimean War, Russian troops were totally outgunned. It's a perfect example. A peak of excellence followed by a total collapse.
So what you have are these brilliant inventions that just don't turn into lasting innovations. One historian calls them Russia's lonely ideas, which is such a perfect way to put it. To figure out why, we have to look at all the barriers that consistently stood between a great idea and a successful product.
And it was never, ever just one thing. It was this whole web of interconnected barriers that just fed off each other for centuries. I mean, you've got cultural attitudes, political fears, the social structure, the legal system, the economy, and corruption, of course. All of it together created an environment that was just deeply, deeply hostile to real progress.
Let's start with attitudes, because this one is huge. This quote from 2010 really says it all. There was this powerful, deep-seated belief that science was this pure, noble thing. But business, entrepreneurship, that was seen as dirty, something beneath a true intellectual. An inventor could be a hero, but the innovator trying to actually sell something, they were suspicious. That makes it almost impossible to get an idea from the lab into the marketplace.
Then you have the legal system, which was another massive hurdle. Instead of a real patent that actually protected your idea, Tsarist Russia had this thing called an invention privilege. It was basically a pat on the back from the state, not a legal shield. It gave you no real power to stop people from copying you, and it left you, as one scholar put it, entirely at the mercy of the bureaucratic machine. And all this leads to a fundamental political problem. Throughout its history, authoritarian governments in Russia have tended to see successful, independent business people not as national heroes, but as potential threats. Someone with money and influence who's outside of state control, that's scary to an autocrat. So the system often ended up crushing the very people it needed to succeed.
Okay, so let's fast forward. How does all this history connect to today? Well, the modern Russian government is completely aware of this pattern, and right now they're making this enormous, high-stakes bet to finally break the cycle.
And they are throwing serious money at the problem. By 2012, the state had pumped around $18 billion into just one of these initiatives, Rusnano, its big nanotechnology corporation. The strategy is clear. Use the full power and money of the state to force a high-tech future into existence. The flagship project for all this is Skolkovo, which is called Russia's Silicon Valley. But just look at the difference in the models here. Silicon Valley grew from the bottom up. It was this chaotic, messy ecosystem fueled by rebels and college dropouts and venture capitalists. Skolkovo is the complete opposite. It's a top-down, centralized project run by the state to create a high-tech industry by government order. And it begs the question, can you really command innovation into existence like that?
And that right there brings us to the core of this whole paradox. And it's captured perfectly in one brilliant metaphor.
So, back in 2010, some Russian officials were meeting with folks from MIT, trying to pick their brains on how to make Skolkovo work. And after listening for a while, one of the MIT administrators just got frustrated and said, "You want the milk without the cow." Russia desperately wants the results of innovation. It wants the milk.
But the cow? Well, the cow is the hard part. The cow is the messy, chaotic, free, bottom-up society that actually makes the milk. It's the legal protections for entrepreneurs. It's the cultural respect for business. It's the freedom for crazy, disruptive ideas to challenge the way things are done. And it's the political space for innovators to get rich and successful without being seen as a threat.
So we end with this question. Can a nation truly become a sustainable technological leader by only focusing on the technology? Or does it first have to innovate its own society, creating that open, supportive, and free environment where those lonely ideas can finally find a home and change the world? That is the challenge and the paradox at the very heart of Russia's tech story.